Hi, I'm Reed. This is Crowland Publishing. This is the fourth and final of the superheroic fantasy series. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and if you do, please do give a thumbs up. Please do give a like. It's really important to us. Helps us grow the channel hugely. Thank you very much. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about was some examples of fiction that I think have been influenced by the superhero genre, or we can just learn from because it's got powerful characters that fit into our definitions. So the first thing, Amber, the Amber stories by Selene. There is 1,000 trillion million endless parallel realities, and they are all caused by one, Amber. And there is a family of demigods who are fighting for control of Amber. Now the thing about these books is that they're not superheroic in the way that the Hulk picks up a battleship and throws them over the head, but they are all very powerful characters. But the interesting thing is it's contextual, so that if you go to a parallel universe where everyone can lift a ton, you can lift a ton and three. If you are in a parallel universe where everyone can take a bullet, you can take two bullets. The Amberites are always more powerful than anyone aside from other Amberites. They all have sort of a generic suite of powers. They all have these magic tarot cards they can use. They all have certain or greater or lesser powers over the parallel universes that they encounter and deal with, and they can move between them quite easily. But they're never really super strong in the way that Captain America and Thor are really super strong. Great books, good examples of how to do powerful characters without doing phenomenal cosmic power kind of characters. Next up, the Malazan Books of the Fallen. I talk about these a lot because they're really, really great to steal from for D&D. It's a pretty high fantasy world when you get right down to it, or at least it used to be a pretty high-powered fantasy world. And there's this concept called ascension. And something happens to you and you become far more than human. What this is can be quite different. Sometimes it's just the universe sees your incredible display of courage or skill or compassion, or some moral event changes you, or the gods change you, or sometimes it's just an accident, like these dudes fall into another dimension and come out immune to conventional weaponry. But my favorite and a really, really good example is a character called Gruntle. Gruntle is just a regular caravan guard. He's just a first level fighter. The tiger god of war hears his prayers, sees his desperate need, and transforms him, and he becomes this ascendant of the gods. And he gets all these cool tiger stripes, and he becomes an incredibly cool fighter who's hard to kill. He's got these two cutlasses, and then eventually people come to him and join his army. And when you see them fighting on the battlefield, they look like a vast tiger fighting together. And he's around for a long time in these 10 books, and he's a cool character, and he's a really, really great example of what a super powered fantasy character might look like. And there's loads of them throughout these books. Caladan Brood, who's this 300,000-year-old man with this incredible hammer, and he smacks it and tectonic events happen. And Adamander Rake, lover of the son of darkness, whatever he's called, and he transforms into a black dragon, and he's got a not Stormbringer sword. Great books. Ascension is a really, really big inspiration for everything that I've written about in these last few videos. Good books. I'm sure you've read the Rift War books by Raymond Feist, Pug and Malamba and all that. Part of the background world building of these books, and of course they eventually come on stage, is the Valaru, an ancient race, enemy of the gods, super powerful immortals that eventually conquered the dragons and have psychic powers and incredible magical technology, and they have been around since the beginning of the universe, and everybody's afraid of them. And there's this fantastic passage where they're running into cyborg gods and all the rest of it. They're not only a really, really interesting world building phenomenon, because those books become quite sort of cosmic fantasy, and why are there elves on every planet? Oh, because the Valaru put them there. But eventually the Valaru come on stage and begin to influence events and become a Valaru character comes in. Really, really good example for what a high-level superheroic influence character might look like in a very regular D&D world. Did you ever read Battle Chasers? It's a comic in the 90s and it's a video game now. I'll be honest, it's not really my thing. A little bit too much 90s emphasis on unusual anatomy for women, shall we say. But it's a fantasy adventuring company That's also a superhero team. The Big Bruiser Hulk is Calibretto the War Golem. The serious Cyclops style leader, Captain America style leader, is Garrison the Paladin. The weird eccentric science genius is Nolan the Wizard. Red Monica is terrible. It's not a great comic. I'm not really into it, but it is a really interesting example of how these character dynamics can map on to fantasy and map on to superheroes. It's worth a look. The Witcher, classic and excellent example. The Witcher is taken away, he undergoes trials, he goes through traumatic surgery and things to transform his body, and when he's finished, not only does he have specialty knowledge, he's got the physical transformation within his eyes, he also has magic abilities that are unique to the Witcher order. The magicians don't have it, the elves don't have it, the dragons have it. Witcher magic is unique to witches. They are absolutely superheroic kinds of characters, and an excellent example. There's so many other things that I can't really get into. This is already going a bit long. Promethea by Alan Moore, Avatar, Covenant of the Shield, which is an old Marvel comic. The Crow is a fantastic version. You just easily port The Crow into any kind of fantasy world. Medieval Spawn, Masters of the Universe, He-Man, if you're really into that sort of stuff. There is a lot of examples. Just have a read, have a think, and you'll find some great stuff. RPG systems next. I said I wouldn't run a lot of these games in D&D, and I meant it. Game balance is important to D&D. It is not to superhero games. Just a lot of the scope is quite different. In D&D, you taking on 3 dudes and winning is pretty cool. In a superhero game, you taking on 30 dudes and winning is pretty standard. So there are a few games that I think that do this quite well. First of all, they're all Marvel superheroes, which is sometimes called Phase Rip, which has a retro clone now. Fantastic, really, really fun 1980s superhero game that has been redesigned for, when do we live now? The 90s? The zeros? Anyway, for now, really fun system, really, really good, and easy to work with fantasy characters. Secondly, Godbound, Kev Crawford. He's the man. I love his work. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without Kev Crawford. Godbound is basically how do you play Exalted without having one of the most god-awful systems in human history. It is both a way to recreate this source material, but at the same time, it's also how you play Immortals D&D, how you play Gods D&D, how you play superheroic fantasy. I think that, especially if you've played D&D, you will be used to the D20 system. I highly recommend it. I haven't played it yet. I'm bloody keen as mustard, so highly recommend it. You could use Exalted for fantasy superheroes. I don't recommend it because I'm not really... We'll talk about Exalted another time, but, you might also want to use Mutants and Masterminds D20. It's very crunchy, it's very heavy, but it is a good system for people who like that D20, who like that, get their multiplier bonuses in a row and then roll. If you can find a copy, and you should be able to pretty easily. The old D&D Immortal set, it was for basic D&D from the 80s. I haven't had a look at it in a very, very long time indeed. But I imagine that would be quite useful to go and steal ideas from. It was how you play. It didn't really have gods, but it was how to play gods in D&D. There are some options if you really do want to try fantasy superheroes, but not finding 5e particularly rewarding. And I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. But there you go. So look, I think we're done. I think I've gone on enough about this. We've gone over an hour now of videos, I think, or 45 minutes or something. I've really enjoyed doing fantasy superheroes. I'm really quite keen on it. I sort of want to write a novel now based on street level fantasy superheroes. But please do let me know how it goes. Please do talk about this in the thingy down there, whatever it's called, the comments section. Give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe. It really does help out. Thank you very much. I've come to really love you. Goodbye.